Welcome to this video. Thank you so much for tuning in, sharing this now moment with myself and with one another. If you haven't seen these videos before, welcome. Welcome back if you have. My intention is unity and oneness. Welcome to my geode. I have so much to catch up on. I've got videos I have done. I have not had a chance to edit and post them. How are you guys doing? Are you guys running a little bit behind like I am on everything? Kind of trying to catch up, but be present at the same time? Kind of challenging sometimes. How are we feeling after the eclipse? We're still here. Most of us. Some people probably chose to leave. I'm going back to the video I did a couple days ago that said the guides were saying, don't be afraid. Just relax and enjoy it. And ain't that the truth? But I will say, I'm not sure how everybody's feeling exactly, but I feel ungrounded. Hence my geode background. I thought that would help ground me, really anchor the frequencies into the earth. It's a good idea right now to really get grounded and allow ourselves to feel the fullness of the earth, to feel the fullness of our bodies, to let everything that we're experiencing integrate fully. That's the word fullness, fully, completion, feeling complete, feeling. All of that is really important and key right now. Yeah. And enjoying the magic of the moment. This magic moment. I know, terribly off key there, but being in the moment and enjoying the lightheartedness that we can hopefully tune into right now, because there is a frequency shift that has occurred. There's always a frequency shift occurring, though. These moments highlight those shifts, and they allow us to come together and see something beyond the earth. Let me rephrase that. We're on earth, we're seeing it. We have a sense of something bigger than us. And that's important for people, to bring people together, to create a sense of awe and wonder. So these are all things to keep in mind, and to stay in that space where we can continue to cultivate that sense of awe and wonder. There's a large group of people who are saying that there's all kinds of negative things going on, and there are, but there are an equal amount of wonderful, beautiful things happening that we're just not able to necessarily see all the time. We can feel it inside of ourselves. We can see it with maybe loved ones and family members. Among the frustrating moments, among the moments of discomfort and personal growth patterns that can feel disruptive in our lives, there's still the ability to feel beauty and wonder in the little things. And this is so important all the time, but especially in the future, right? So I'm just gonna go in a little flow with the guides. By the way, my higher guidance team is a collective of many different beings from many different dimensions, frequencies. So I just kind of pull it all in with whatever is relevant for the now moment for the collective. It's meant to be felt, not necessarily understood on a linear basis, and also keeping in mind that it is a also can sometimes be a little poemy, rhymey, but it's meant to shift the frequency in that case and get us to think outside of the box of language. I'm doing a little toning. I've done a lot of toning lately. I'm not sure if this will cancel it out, but and the frequency has shifted dramatically. And because of this, there will be an over dramatization of that which is not. there will be a frequency of frequency, if you will, trying to shift our frequency back to where it was in one game board, if you will. Because some people have become bored with the game, they must find another way to create a new game that plays by the old set of rules. Yet, because many of us have become bored with the game, we are moving past that game and are now operating with a new set of rules. And this set of rules is boundless. It is an opportunistic, if you will, and this is a play on words. It is an opportunity to tune into the potentiality of expandability and feeling into the ability to expand and letting go of the old song and dance. The old school methodology is no longer, I'm hearing old school rules, no longer actually at the driver's wheel or driver's seat. Not to say that they ever really were, but our ideas around and concepts in the packaging that we've all been served neatly. Seeing something served neatly in a package, like, here you go, here's your life. This is how you unwrap it. This is the way it needs to look as you unwrap it. This is how you need to react as you unwrap the gift. And by the way, this is what's inside. And as you look at it, it's like a reality TV show is what I'm being shown. That doesn't hold water for a lot of us anymore. And there are those that are still finding the old game tolerable. And part of the reason is because they feel out of sorts and out of place with expansion, which feels to them intolerable. There's only a certain amount of growth that one person can take on in a certain particular order or period of time when one is not used to experiencing growth. So we say this in jest because in actuality, everyone is growing all of the time, even though according to yours or my perspective, that's not the case. We, from a higher perspective, the collective of many, I'm hearing the collective of 9, but I'm hearing many different 9s, all in the 9s and beyond, would venture to say that you are all growing. And even though we may not, it may not appear as if the person next to you is really growing, and it may not appear that your peers are making the same progress that you would hope for, we can assure you that they too are growing as well. And although they may be growing in a different direction, they may be tuning into a different angle, they may be rectangular when you are fully into the cube or the I'm hearing hypotenuse. We're playing with this. There is a huge amount of shape shifting going on. And so we invite you to get out of the way of each other, get out of your own way, and get out of the old ways into the new ways, which means we are no longer here to judge another person by the color of their coat. I'm hearing the coat of many colors has many different frequencies. And yet, if we hang on to the old judgment of the old system, we are hanging on to the old coat that is hinders our ability to shift frequencies. So while the coat of many colors is seeking to combine all colors, the something to do with the play on words with coat. Oh, like coat of arms, a coat that labels something, a coat of paint, like all of that stuff is heavy. And it's difficult to change quickly. We are seeking to change quickly. And so the more we hold on to our idea of how others are changing or adapting to these new energies, the more we are at a disadvantage, the less we are able to use our full spectrum gaze to see into what is truly, I'm here seeing like a gazing ball, and I'm basically being shown that we have the opportunity to see into it, but we're oftentimes distracted by what I'm hearing looking at what someone else is gazing at. Like, what are they looking at? Why aren't they looking over here? Or stop looking at that. It doesn't make any sense. Or what is their future? What do they say their future looks like? It's like looking at our own magic ball, right? Like create our own alchemy. So this is challenging because now the energies have really ramped up. And we say now again in jest because they have always been ramping up. But there has been a collective agreement, we could say, and a collective vow that was made that from this point forward, we are stepping forward into a whole new reality. Therefore, we are stepping into a whole new reality. For you have all agreed to agree to this. You have all collectively agreed that this is how we roll. This is how we roll out the red carpet for our cakewalk, if you will. This is all play on words. I think a cakewalk is play on words too. So while this may not be a piece of cake, we invite you to see there are many layers to the cake. And while some flavors may not be your favorite flavor, this is all a cake that is all meant for those who can taste the rainbow to enjoy the moment in offering the compassion and ability to expand our view and our perspectives to give everyone the opportunity to enjoy their own cake. I'm seeing two things. I'm seeing a play on words. I'm seeing a reference to let them eat cake. And that is not what I'm referring to, but I can see where we're going to tie into that a little bit. Because that is one thing that's happening. We're seeing that type of energy being projected with a misuse of power, we'll say, or a misunderstanding of power. But that's a whole other ball of wax. I'm being shown the scene from The Office. Have you guys ever seen that where they take away the birthday? I think Jim becomes if you haven't seen The Office, you won't get this, but it's a pretty good show. And everybody gets a cake for their birthday every time. That's the way the office manager had always done it. And trying to be like more efficient, the new manager says, we're just going to do one cake for everyone, but nobody can agree on the cake. I don't know if it's one cake for everyone or one cake for the birthday month, whatever. But everybody's upset because they're like, well, wait a minute, it's my birthday. I want to have cherry pie. I don't want coconut cake. I can't eat coconut. I'm allergic. I want chocolate. I don't like, it's so there's this idea like quit. And this is the message that keeps coming up is quit worrying about other people's stuff. It's time for us to focus on our own stuff because whatever is out of balance and whatever is out of alignment will really be highlighted right now yet again. And there are those who are frustrated over the constant highlighting of what feels like I'm seeing gaslighting, but we misinterpret and misunderstand oftentimes what gaslighting is. Boy, I wish I could pause this and look up what my guides are trying to share with me. So let me go back into flow a little bit about this. There are those who would point the finger and forget that three fingers are pointing back at them. It's that simple. So rather than pouring fuel on the fire for some of the problems that we all have as a collective, we invite you to start landscaping your own backyard, landscaping your front yard, creating your own landscape in which you find your perfect space in order to stay out of everyone else's space. But this is a play on words. For it is important that we tend our own gardens. And in doing this, our neighbors will look over our fence and wonder, how is it that they were able to get such a beautiful garden? Maybe I can do something similar. Maybe I can learn from that gardener. And that is when the energies shift for the neighbor, coworker, colleague, friend, family member will then be drawn to you because in this essence, you are the glue that is keeping together. I'm hearing keeping it together, and keeping it together in such a way that it creates togetherness rather than separation. And I'm hearing to gather rather than gathering and creating an abundance of gossip or an abundance of forceful energies that are preachy and preach to the choir. We would invite others to get out of that particular way of doing things and be more resourceful. Boy, I feel like we're getting a talking to right now from my guidance team. I'm looking at this as a mirror, like, okay, who have I been giving advice to? Maybe I'm not doing myself. So what I'm being shown is a lot of people are in, there's a couple things. A lot of people are in the habits of getting together in groups and talking about the same thing and not taking action. Then there's a lot of other people that do that, and then they basically take action by pushing their opinions on other people. Then there's the groups that don't want to do anything, and they just want to tend to their own garden, but they don't want to socialize at all. And there's nothing wrong, by the way, with that. What I'm being shown is it's not about us keeping to ourselves, and it's not about us ignoring the problems or ignoring what we perceive as a problem. But it is about us taking care of our business so that when the opportunity arises, we are able to keep our ego from taking over and really be the gardener and not the landlord, is what I'm hearing. I don't know why I'm being, all of these are references. There's an essence of, okay, I'm being shown the earth as an example. There's a lot of people out there projecting their views about how the earth should be cared for, yet they're doing nothing to care for the earth themselves. This is a perfect example. They're projecting being green, but they're not really looking at what they're doing. They're listening to propaganda instead of actually connecting with the earth. So, and I'm not just talking about recycling. Most of us recycle, right? But we go out and do something because our neighbor's doing it, but we don't actually look at why our neighbor's doing it. So back to the gardening example, if we look and see what our neighbor is doing to get this beautiful garden, and they have all these butterflies they're attracting and all the bees they're attracting and everything in their garden is organic, we can learn how to cultivate that way rather than, do you get where I'm going with this? So that's basically what's coming through. But there's more. Because what this does when we garden and we connect with the earth and we tend to our own field, we create a field around us that changes our chemistry. It changes our abundance. It creates an abundant field of alchemical response. And then we are able to be responsible because we get into coherence. We get into a space of heartfelt coherence. We get into a space of consistent coherence because by gardening for instance, we're shifting the frequency of our interaction with everything around us. We become more mindful. We become more in tune with the earth and what's needed. We become more aware of where our vegetables are coming from. We become more aware of what our food needs in order to thrive. We become more aware of what our body needs to thrive. We become aware of how things taste from a fresh garden versus commercial. We become more aware outside of our garden then, and we shift how we interact with the world. So our field is our energy around us. Our coat of many colors is our light body, okay? And we are essentially being called to heed the call of what we have to do in order to cultivate this beautiful future. Because there's a lot of people out there pointing fingers and they really don't know. They are, I'm hearing, jumping on the bandwagon because it feels good to be part of a community, because it feels good to be part of a cause. But in actuality, I'm hearing it's causeway. It's actually getting in our own way of a bigger cause. And I'm hearing cause and effect. So what's happening is we're not realizing necessarily whatever cause we're jumping on the bandwagon for, what effect that's going to have on the future. We think that it's a good deed, but in actuality, we're pushing that energy or those resources into something that we really haven't done the research. I'm hearing our due diligence to recognize maybe that isn't exactly where I should be focusing my time and attention or money or resources or whatever it is. I'm hearing do the research. And by the way, when I say do the research, it doesn't just mean looking on the internet and just looking at the first 5 things that pop up when you search a word or when you search purchasing a particular automobile. Really do the research. This requires some legwork. This requires us having deeper conversations with people outside of our pockets. So this goes back to what the guys were saying about us getting together and just so it's a fine line. Like that's like only hanging out with one party, political or otherwise. I'm sorry, I can't associate with you because you're a different party. We really have to start opening up conversations, opening up dialogue, and stepping outside of the box. Because just because that person belongs to a particular political party, they might have incredible information about organic gardening that we know nothing about. So do you see where I'm going with this? It's like they're playing with all of the different compartmentalization that we've been following as a society, as a human collective. So now that we've all agreed to move forward on this path, can we find a way to agree to assist one another without knocking each other off of our paths by being overbearing? So these are the things that are kind of coming through. I don't know why, but we'll play with that. The other thing that I'm noticing is once we get our own stuff in order, it's harder to knock us off our path. And our passion extends into other things. So I'm being called to share this. Oftentimes in a session, when I'm working with someone, I will be called to share with them, or I will see intuitively something that they should be doing more of. And I'm going to use, well, I won't use say names, but, and I've said this before, but sometimes it's more artwork. Sometimes the person needs to sing more. Sometimes I see the person and they really need touch. They need to get massage, or they, other times that they need to receive, right? They need to receive body work. Other times they need to reach out to other people and give more. Sometimes I see people volunteering, like, you know, sometimes I'll see someone that needs to volunteer in a particular area, whether it be an area in the world or with a particular group. They need to work more with children. They need to work less with children. They need to work more with elderly. So it depends on who I'm working with, right? And I'm going to use the art and the singing as an example, because sometimes I'll be called to tell someone, you've got a beautiful voice, you need to use it. That doesn't mean they need to go out and karaoke or go out and start auditioning for American Idol or whatever, the voice show, The Voice. What it means is that's part of our being that hasn't been explored enough or needs to be explored in a different way, in a different area. And I can't tell you how many times I've suggested that, and then I have another session with that person and they didn't do it. How often have we, so, or write. Sometimes I'm called, I always encourage everybody to write, but some people, that's a gift that they have yet to explore fully, or they're not doing it enough. And someone's guides are like, you need to write more. And they're like, well, I don't have time. Okay, we can make all the excuses that we want, but when sometimes we're looking so much that we get addicted to looking. We want the world to change so badly the way we want it to change that we get addicted to telling other people what they should be doing and what you've read about, but we haven't done the work ourselves. Not to say that any kind of work is good work, by the way. It doesn't have to be, I need to do this, I need to eat right, I need, be gentle on ourselves. We don't have to do it all. But I'm going to use for instance, if someone has mentioned to you or you felt the call to paint, I'm thinking of Kay here, by the way. Lots of love, giving you hugs. She sent me a beautiful painting. Horse. Horse is very symbolic right now. But anyways, so there are gifts that all of us don't use, or we don't use enough, or we are afraid to use, or we don't think they're really gifts. It doesn't matter. It's the process of actually applying that creativity that takes us out of, because what I'm being shown is a lot of people think that their mission here on earth is to tell other people what to do. A lot of people think that their mission here on earth is to be the change by pushing their political, social, religious views on other people. And I'm not here to say whether those views are right or wrong, but what I am here to invite those individuals to do is to reflect and go a little deeper inward. What does that religious teaching have to share other than preaching? Does it involve being kind to your neighbor? Does it involve doing volunteer work? Does it involve going out to help pick up trash on the beach or feed a homeless person? If we're busy pushing these belief systems, but we're not actually following through to do what it is that supports that from not from the social sense, but from the actual root. The root of religion, let's say for example, is God. What is that? Well, the 10 Commandments, right? Isn't that the basis of the Bible? So are we doing and following those? And I know some religions, their goal is to push and to share. I'm not going to say push, to get more people to recognize how important that religion is. But the best way to do that is by being the change. I always, by actually being kind and caring and cooking for a neighbor that maybe can't cook for themselves. Be walking the walk. There's a lot of people talking the talk. And that's essentially what I'm being shown. And this has nothing to do, by the way, I'm not picking on organized religion. We could take this into the political system. A politician, the reason for becoming a politician is to help support the people. Are we seeing a lot of that? Not just support the ideologies and belief systems that keep the same people in power, but by actually supporting the same rules that keep a society functioning in a positive and expansive environment. I think there's something having to do with the word politic too. Polls, like, go deeper, not just a government official, but where did the word politics actually come from? Right? We're supposed to be balancing and listening, organizing. It's not about, it's not necessarily about being a dictator and telling other people what to do. It's service in service to the people. So it's about us listening, and really coming into that space is one of the biggest messages that's coming through. I could keep going, but I have to end on that note. I'm going to stop preaching and start practicing. I have an energy session right now. So having said that, I just want to say that some of us are in the receiving end of that. And I know it can feel frustrating at times. I have friends that are going through it. I've gone through it recently. And again, tending to our own garden. It's just leading by example. It doesn't mean we don't step up and speak up what we feel when it's important, because it is about us sharing our thoughts and feelings. when there's a place and a time, and we can't tell someone else how to tend their garden if our backyard is a mess. I'm hearing one last thing. Reading it in a book is really good. Learning about something is really good. And it can be very helpful to say, oh, I just read this. But it's even more helpful to actually experience it if it's applicable to you. So again, I'm going to use our example of the people that are in charge of our health industry, not exactly the biggest pictures of health. So who do we want? We want to follow someone who's leading by example, but we also want to be our own leaders. And then we lead by example because we're not really in this age of followers anymore. We are all our own leaders, but we look to people. We look up to people. And rather than putting people on a pedestal or a hierarchy, we can look at where they are successful and where they are not. And we can utilize that as a gift for us to say, okay, I'm going to try this instead, and I'm not going to try this. There's just so many different ways of looking at it that we're really being called to shift our perspective right now. Get grounded and find our own gifts, fine tune our own gifts, and use the gifts that maybe some of us haven't, I'm hearing, have been put on a shelf. It's time to bring them out. It's time to share them in a very open way and I'm hearing like hospitality, compassion, joyfulness. Not in the sense of you're wrong because you're not doing this. That's an old paradigm. Okay, I could go on and on, but I wanted to end on that note, just back to the art. Some people have listened, and so oftentimes the reason that I get that message a lot, it is the process of the creativity that then opens the senses for us to receive more downloads, for us to have more ahas, and for us to experience whatever modality that is in which we are creating through, whether it be song, art, so on and so forth. And sometimes we come in with those gifts just because those are the exact gifts that are going to support us and make us feel alive and make us feel excited, bring us bliss and joy. And oftentimes we're not using them. They're just sitting there because we don't, for a lot of reasons, it depends on the person, obviously. Most of the time, if I have a session with someone and they say that they're not, I don't paint because I can't draw. Well, I'm getting the message that you need to start. And you reached out to me to see maybe what I had to share from my perspective, and that's my perspective. You do with it what you want. That's kind of what I'm being shown. We all have freedom of choice. So we have freedom of choice, and just like somebody might have given you advice that you really, really didn't want or didn't take, we're kind of doing the same thing sometimes. And just realize that we all have choice here. So we're being invited to choose more creativity. We're being invited to choose really focusing on us and then enjoying that. And that ripples out and has a bigger impact than us being upset all the time and focusing on all that other stuff. That doesn't mean if you're involved in that a little bit, that you're not going to focus on that a little bit. That isn't our main priority. So in love and light, guys, namaste.